Good morning or afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I would like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is on the... Oh, hold on a second. I think I'm showing you guys my wrong screen here. There we go. Today's webinar is on the flow of visitors in BNI Connect. We're going to be talking about all the different steps of the visitor process and how BNI Connect can help to make it a little bit more efficient and hopefully a little bit more effective as well. So what you see on the screen right now is that flow of visitors. We're going to talk about inviting visitors, about pre-registering visitors, and about the visitor follow-up process as well. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started with today's presentation. That is that this is a live webinar, so if you have any questions whatsoever as we're going through any of the material today, please do feel free to ask those questions. The best way to ask questions is to type your question in to the questions panel, and I will be happy to answer those questions as we're going through any of the material today. We are scheduled for approximately 30 minutes worth of content today, give or take a couple of minutes. I do like to be as respectful as possible to people's extremely busy business days. That being said, if you guys have questions or you'd like to look at this even deeper, I am always happy to stay on these webinars as long as people have questions, whether it's about the visitors or about anything else in BNI Connect. We will be recording this session, both the content and the questions. You'll be able to find the recorded content in a couple of places. The first place to go is to go to support.bniconnect.com, or if you're logged into BNI Connect, click on this question mark that's up in the upper right-hand corner here. So this question mark here in the upper right, that will take you over to the support site. You'll see our list of upcoming webinars. And then if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see chapter, training, and documentation. In here, you'll see recorded webinars, and for April 2015, and we do this every month, so you can really go to any month. Hopefully within about a day or so, I should have the visitors from invitation to follow-up one from today posted. You'll be able to watch it here, or you can always go directly to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. And we have our entire series of webinars, as well as a ton of other things, such as short 3 to 5 minute educational moment videos on very specific topics, and special announcements and things from Dr. Meisner, all sorts of stuff up here on our YouTube channel. So if you'd like to be notified, please subscribe to our channel up there. But again, let's go back to what we're going to talk about today. And today we're going to be talking about the visitors in BNI Connect. And we do have a note up already. Brian, the BNI social media coordinator, welcome. Good to have you here. I guess Brian says he's going to be posting some screenshots of the of what we're going through today on the BNI Facebook page after the webinar. So awesome, Brian. Thank you so much. Glad to have you. You'll be famous on the recording now as well. Cool. So again, let's talk about the flow of visitors in BNI and how BNI can help you with the flow of visitors. So there's 3 distinct stages to the visitor process when it comes to BNI and BNI Connect. The first stage is the actual invitation and the inviting process. The inviting process happens when you're first broaching the subject with somebody. Hey, would you like to come and visit a BNI meeting? BNI Connect can help you with that part of it because we have what's called the visitor invitation email in place, which is meant to be an electronic way to say, hey, would you like to come and visit the chapter? The next part of that process is when you finally have somebody that says, yes, you know what, I really do want to come visit the chapter. Now we have the opportunity to register them for a meeting. And that's the second part of the process. Now this is still happening before the chapter meeting. So before the chapter meeting, first we can invite them, then they say yes, then we can say, all right, so we're going to register for the meeting. It's great because it starts an email chain of events. So it sends them an registration notice. You are registered for the meeting. Now it's much more official. It also reminds them before the meeting and notifies the chapter leadership team that somebody is coming to the meeting. So I'm going to show you that as well. And then finally, you have after the meeting. And after the meeting, BNI Connect has a bunch of ways where we can help you to follow up with those visitors. From sending them thank you messages saying thank you for visiting, to being able to convert them into members eventually, and also just for the visitors that don't end up joining, maybe reaching back out to them a month, 2 months, 6 months later, re-inviting them to networking events or to come and visit again to the chapter. So that's what we're going to be reviewing today. So let's take a look at this very first step of the process, and that is the inviting visitors. Oh, by the way, anybody that would like a copy of this, this is actually part of a 53-page manual. And in this manual, we outline every single one of the processes, what to click on, how it works, what it looks like. So if you'd like a copy of this manual, please feel free to email me, support@bniconnect.com, support@bniconnect.com, and we will be happy to send you a copy of this manual. All right, so let's take a look at this invitation process. So inviting visitors. Well, you do have to log into BNI Connect, by the way. So after you log into BNI Connect, you will see this home screen here. Now, in order to access some of these functions, we are going to have to go beyond the home screen. And one of the things that I hear a lot about BNI Connect is, oh, it's not very user-friendly. I don't know where to find anything in BNI Connect. I get lost looking for things. Here's how I remember how to find things in BNI Connect. So you'll notice that there's these menu items up at the top: Network, Operations, Reports, Tools, and Admin. Most of the time, if you're just a member in your chapter, you're going to see Network, Operations, Reports. You probably won't see Tools and Admin unless you're on the leadership team. Network is always going to be the networking or social media components of BNI. So it has the groups, the connections, the testimonials, the picture gallery. So the places where you're going to go to interact with other people in BNI around the world. Operations and reports are really the other two places that you'll go most frequently. Operations is really for the day-to-day operations of being a BNI member or being on the leadership team of your chapter. Reports is always going to be output only. So when you're looking for statistics or you're looking for pretty much printed or statistical lists of people and visitors and things like that, you're going to go to the reports section. Today, we want to create something. We want to do something input related. So we're going to be doing operations. So we're going to go to operations at the chapter level. Now on the left-hand side, you'll see a bunch of different menu items. This visitor invitation goes out via email. So we're going to go to the create email function. And under here, we'll see three different things: email my chapter, email visitor invitation, and email chapter visitors. Now this, by the way, this isn't part of the visitor process, but this first one is actually really, really useful. If you've ever needed to send out an email to your chapter, you can always get the most current email address list of your chapter by clicking on email my chapter. This will have all of the email addresses of your current chapter members. So it's kind of like a distribution list for your chapter members. All you need to do is copy and paste these into your own email program, and you're able to send a message to your whole chapter. I do recommend putting everybody in the BCC field, by the way, and make sure you're not spamming your chapter. You want to keep it something business related or have a reason to email your chapter. But what I really wanted to show you in here was this email visitor invitation. Now what this is it's kind of like a little Mad Libs. All we need to do is fill out a couple of pieces of information, and what it's going to do is take this information and put it into a pre-formatted email template and send it out to your potential visitor. Now what I find is that this is most useful as a follow-up to a verbal conversation. So let's say that you're out at a, I don't know, at a networking event. Maybe it's a business after hours with the Chamber of Commerce or something like that. And you're at this event and you meet somebody, you're talking to them and say, hey, you know what? We don't have a plumber in our chapter. I would love to introduce you to some of the referral partners I have. They've been looking for a plumber for a long time. And they say, yeah, you know what? That's great. Why don't you send me an invitation? So you can go back to your office or wherever, your computer, and send them an invitation. So let's say it was Peter Plummer from Peter's Plumbing and his email address. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put my own email address in, so it sends me the invitation so you guys can see what this looks like. So I'm going to send this to myself, Jeremy. The next thing we need to do is we need to personalize this a little bit. So we want to make this sound like it's coming from an actual human, because it is. It's coming from you. So we will have some default text in there, but we want it to sound like it's coming from you as well. So, it was great meeting you at the networking event. I would love to introduce you to my referral partners. Right? So we're recalling our conversation already. We're sending them an invitation to get introduced to my referral partners. So reiterating the conversation that I had with Peter. Now, once I click send, it will make this the first paragraph. It will address it to Peter, and it will send it immediately to this email address, so whatever email address you type in here. So I'm going to go ahead and click send. It's composing the message now, and boom, it sends it out right away. And I should get this in my email in just about a second. And here it is. I just got it. Here's the actual invitation that got sent out. You'll notice that it has a nice BNI graphic logo in here. And if I scroll down, it has a good message as well. So it does address it, Dear Peter. And then it puts in my personal message right up there at the top. It was great meeting you at the networking event. I would love to introduce you to my referral partners. Then it goes into the standard text of the invitation. Lets him know that he's cordially invited to the meeting of the BNI Burr chapter. So that's my test chapter up in Antarctica. Lets him know that we meet at the Cool Breeze Cafe and where it's located, so they can put that into the GPS. And what day and time we meet. Then it gives a brief explanation about what BNI is. So it doesn't give them too much information. It doesn't give them too little information, just the right amount of information. Lets them know we're looking for their profession, and lets them know to RSVP with you if they would like to attend. And if they hit reply, this will go to your email address that's on file in BNI Connect. So that's the visitor invitation. You're inviting somebody to come to the meeting. Now, let's go back to our form here. We've now accomplished this first step, which is inviting visitors. We sent them an invitation. So now let's say that Peter Plummer comes back to me and says, you know what? That sounds really, really great. I would like to come and attend that meeting. Now you can register them to attend the meeting. Now, or they can also register themselves through the regional website. So let's say that I would like to register them. So I would go back to BNI Connect. Let me minimize this. And I'm still going to be in the Operations menu under Operations Chapter. And now I'm going to go to this Manage Visitor Functions on the left-hand side, which is the top menu item. And what I'd like to do is to choose the option Register a Prospective Visitor. And again, this is after somebody's gotten back to you and confirms that they would like to come to a meeting. This is really nothing more than just filling out a quick form. So I'm going to make sure that we choose specialties. So Peter Plummer is in the trades, and he is a plumber. When is he going to visit? He said he was going to visit next week on the 22nd. And we can fill out his name, Peter Plummer, from Peter's Plumbing. If we know his address, we can fill out all this information as well. And the phone number is mandatory, as is the email address. And the reason that this is mandatory is that because this does start an email process with this prospective visitor. So once I click submit, it reset everything because I used the Google auto select. Awesome. Let me fix this up real quick. Sorry about that. Sometimes Google gets a little too intrusive there. We got the plumber, the 22nd, Peter Plumber, so on and so forth. Visit date. All right, we should be good to go here. And this now starts an email process, as I said. So the first thing it does is it registers this person as a prospective visitor. So not somebody that showed up yet. It doesn't go in the POMS report yet or anything, just as a prospective visitor. It then sends him, or in this case, Peter, a thank you saying you are confirmed to visit. This right here is one of the keys to getting more visitors to actually show up to your meetings. I don't know how many times it's happened to me. I'm a member of a chapter. I've been a member since 2002. I invite somebody. I say, yeah, you got to come to my BNI meeting. I give them all the directions. I send them all the information. Then all of a sudden, on the day of the meeting, I show up to the meeting early, waiting to welcome them, and they aren't there. And a lot of times that comes down to the expectation of actually going to the meeting. So when we're inviting them, yeah, yeah, it's okay if I show up, but maybe nobody's really expecting me to be there. So when the alarm goes off at, oh God, 30 in the morning, they're like, you know what, I kind of want to sleep. They're not going to really miss me anyway. Once you send a registration notice to them, now they know that they're expected to be there. So by confirming their visit, there is a much more likely chance that they're going to show up, or if they're not going to show up, that they're going to call you and tell you, by the way, I can't make it tomorrow. Maybe you can get them to come back another week, or let them off the hook and say it's okay, but at least you know whether your visitor is going to show up at that point. They'll also get a very similar email 2 days before letting them know that the meeting is coming and that they are still registered for that meeting. In addition to this, the leadership team also gets a message. So the leadership team gets an email saying, by the way, somebody has registered to your meeting. And as a matter of fact, I just hacked the email of my leadership team for the Burr chapter. And right here we have a notification that just came in at 2:15 p.m. a couple of minutes ago. It said, hey, Alfred, Peter Plummer is confirmed to visit the BNI Burr chapter on the 22nd. Please be prepared to welcome Peter. Remember that visitors can become members. Make sure you show up early. Happy connecting. And here's Peter's information. Peter Plummer from Peter's Plumbing. He's in the trades. And here's his phone number. So there's great information that we can take this back now and possibly even pre-follow up with Peter the Plumber. Give him a call. Say, hey, by the way, Peter, we noticed that you registered to come visit our chapter meeting. I can't wait to introduce you to the electrician, to the builder, to all the other members of our chapter. I think you're going to be a great fit. The more times you can reach out to this visitor ahead of time, the better the chance that A, they're going to show up, and B, that they'll feel welcome when they get there. You can even use this information to have things like name tags printed out. And speaking of name tags, you may be able to even use now the registered visitors report. So if we go to the reports section now, what we should see is a report all the way at the bottom of the list here. There's the visitor registration report. So now we can see all the visitors that are registered for upcoming meetings. This is especially helpful if you're doing something like a stack day or a visitor's day where you might have planned this day 2, 3, 4, 8 weeks in advance. You can start to keep the pipeline intact for all the people that are showing up to the meeting. So I'm going to do a search here for my Burr chapter up in Antarctica. How many people do I have registered for next week's meeting? And you can see that right now I have one person registered for next week's meeting, Peter Plummer. Phone number, email, the profession, the specialty, the visit date. I can even see and this is extremely helpful for things like Visitors Day, who invited that person by running this report. So especially for Visitors Days, you can see who's contributing and see from an accountability standpoint who's participating in this process. Of course, with just about every report in BNI Connect, you can export this report if you'd like it in Excel or you'd like to copy and paste this maybe into an email. And by the way, the people that get that notification are the president, the vice president, the secretary treasurer, all of the visitor hosts in the chapter, and the director consultant for the chapter. Now, I mentioned visitors can also, by the way, register anytime they want to through the chapter websites. So, for example, I'm going to go to my Antarctica, which is antarcticreferrals.com, which is our Antarctica website. Now, let's say I'm a visitor. I'm browsing the websites. I heard about this great thing called BNI in Antarctica. I want to go and visit a chapter. So I'm going to go click on Find a Chapter. Let me take a look at the chapters that are available. We have the Frozen Assets chapter, the Chili Hillbillies, but I think the Bird chapter is a great chapter. They meet on Wednesdays at 5:30. Perfect timing for me. So let me take a look. I can see now all the members in the chapter. This has Art Garfunkel and Marky Mark and Alfred E. Newman. I can even look at people's profiles from here. This looks like a good chapter to visit, so I'm going to go ahead and visit this chapter. So I can click on Visit this chapter, fill out the same exact form that we would fill out as members just through the public website. And again, people are doing this on a daily basis. Our websites do come up very often in the in Google searches and things like that. So anybody can register to visit your chapter through the regional website and even through your chapter webpage as well. All right, so let's go back here though. Now that we've registered people for the meeting, we've invited people to the meeting, they have registered or we have registered them for the meeting, and we have the last part of this process, and that is now the meeting has actually happened. You've printed out your name tags, you've printed out that report so that you have a visitor sign-in sheet if you want to. Now we can mark the visitors as attended and do some follow-up with visitors. Let's go back to BNI Connect now. And to do follow-up with visitors, again, if we're doing data entry, I've got to go back to Operations. And now we're back under Manage Visitors. And there's a couple of things that we can do. Now, the first thing we want to do is if we know that we had visitors that have registered for the chapter, what we want to do is check our registered visitors and see if any of them showed up for the meeting. So we do that by going to Manage Registered Visitors and mark attendance. Now, most people in BNI Connect are not going to see this option unless you're a visitor host or you're a president, secretary, treasurer, vice president, basically somebody with access to actually managing and recording the visitors in the system. So again, most members aren't going to see this option except for, again, visitor hosts or leadership team members. So the first thing we want to do is manage the registered visitors, check for people that might have showed up to the meeting. So we can choose a certain date range if we want to. So let's say people that registered in April. And here we have a bunch of people that have been registered at various points in April. See, we had Vizzy Visitor and Victor Visitor that had registered earlier in the month. Now, if they didn't show up, we can always remove them from the registered visitor list. I don't think Victor's ever going to come to the meeting, and I talked to him. He said, get me off your marketing list. I'm going to go ahead and remove him from our prospective visitors. Now, let's say I reach out to Vizzy, though, and Vizzy says, you know what? I wasn't able to make it. I'd really like to come to the meeting next week. Well, we can go ahead and edit this record, and we can change Vizzy's visit date. So let's say he agreed to come on the 29th. He can't make it to next week's meeting, but he'd like to come to the following week. I can resubmit his registration with the new date. So that makes it much easier. We don't have to type in all the information again. And Vizzy will get a confirmation message, basically starting the email process over again, saying, hey, by the way, Vizzy, You are now confirmed to visit the Burr chapter on the 29th at 5:30. So let's say that our meeting next week goes by, and we now need to record the visitors. So we actually did have our meeting yesterday, which was the 15th of April, and we had John Smith that did show up as a visitor. Let's go ahead into his record and edit. And all we really need to do at this point is we just need to mark him as attended. So from a visitor host perspective, especially if you happen to be a visitor host on the call or a secretary treasurer, the person that's doing the data entry, the more of your members and visitors that are registering themselves or registering their own visitors, the less data entry you have to do, the less typing you have to do, the less times you have to get that visitor sign-in sheet that is, nothing but a load of chicken scratch and try to decipher what they're actually writing. If they type it in themselves, all you need to do is make sure that you mark them as attended. You can then decide whether or not to include this person for credit in the POMs. Now, most of the time, you do want to make sure that the person that invited them gets the visitor credit. But there are some times when you don't. And sometimes might be, let's say that they're already a member in another chapter. That's not really a qualified visitor. So you may not want to mark that credit in the POMs report. Another time when you may not want to do that is, let's say it's their second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th visit in that 6-month period. That might be another reason not to mark that credit. The reason that you want to be concerned about adding it to the POMs is that if you're paying attention to things like the traffic lights, which is kind of a rating system for the activity in your chapter, this will affect your traffic lights. So that the more visitors that are in the POMs report, especially if it's not a real visitor, that will lower your conversion ratio and therefore lower your traffic light score. So you do want to just keep an eye on which ones you're adding. The rest of the information, again, depending on how good of a job the person that entered the data was, you do have to verify who invited them. By default, if you enter it in BNI Connect, it's going to choose the person that was doing the data entry, but that may not be the actual person that invited them. So you do need to go ahead and choose the right person. Let's say it was Ricky Martin that actually invited this person because that's the person that's going to get credit in the POMs report. Fill out any remaining information, and then at the bottom, you want to make sure you choose whether or not the visitor will receive a follow-up email. Most of the time, again, you are going to want them to receive the follow-up email, but there's times when you may want to suppress it. For example, if let's say that you were on vacation and you're 4 weeks behind on entering the visitor data. At that point, you may want to suppress that email because it might look embarrassing to the visitor saying, hey, thanks for visiting. The visitor's going to be like, well, I actually visited a month ago. So I'm going to go ahead and send this because it was just yesterday. And now this visitor has attended the meeting. They've been marked as attended, and the data entry was much easier at that point. If the person didn't register, so I look through this list, let's say that Jane Smith came to the meeting, but they hadn't pre-registered, I can then go ahead and click the Add Visitor button, which will just go through the visitor process here rather than the pre-registration process. Now, once we've started keeping track of our visitors, now we have some wonderful reports. We now have a visitor database to work off of when we're converting them to members. And obviously, if I go to the chapter reports, I'll have some wonderful things like the chapter visitor report. So I can go back and I can do follow-ups with these visitors later. So let's say that we're having a business after hours event for our chapter, and we'd like to invite all of the visitors that have come to our meeting in this past quarter, because we'd like to network with them, maybe invite them back to another meeting. I can do this. I can click go. I can get the email addresses and a report of all the people that have come to visit our chapter, and I can email them. I can invite them to the events. I could follow up with them, maybe give them a phone call. If you are using something like a send out cards or a constant contact, you could always export this list as well to an Excel file and be able to import it into other systems that way. All right, we are at the bottom of the hour. What I'd like to do is to open this up to any questions. Again, because we're at the bottom of the hour, if there's anybody that does need to leave right away, I would very much like to thank you for being here for the webinar today. But for anybody that can hang out and stay for a couple more minutes, please do feel free to ask any questions you'd like to about visitors in BNI Connect or anything else. Just a reminder, this is being recorded, so you will be able to revert back to it later or share the recording with other people in your chapters. You can do that by clicking on the question mark and going to the support site, or again, going right to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. I would also love it if you gave us a like on Facebook. If you go to facebook.com/BNI Connect Global, you'll see that we have a ton of reminders and tips and tricks, and it's just another avenue for getting you information. So please do check us out on Facebook and give us a like up here as well. And finally, a good referral for me would be to please let people know about these webinars. Our very next webinar is going to be next Wednesday. So Wednesday, April 22nd, we're going to be going through the chapter goals program. This is mostly for chapter leadership teams. So we're going to be talking about how to fill out your goals for the next 6 months or for the next year of your leadership term, and how it's going to help you track those goals throughout the year and pull information from the POMS report to keep you up to date on where you stand with your goals. Following that, we'll be going and diving deeper and deeper into the system, talk about a lot of the leadership team tools and reports. That's going to be next Thursday. All right. Do we have any questions at all? Questions? I'd love to answer questions. All right. It looks like we have a pretty quiet group today. All right, if there aren't any questions, what I'd like to do is to thank everybody so much for being here. I will get this recording up as quickly as possible, and I look forward to seeing you all on a future webinar. Thanks again, and happy connecting.